Lieutenant Jake Miller rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the flickering display. He had been working the night shift on Cerberus Watch for 3 months now, and usually nothing happened. The Deep Space Monitoring Station floated quietly at the edge of known space, listening for signals that almost never came. Tonight was different. The strange transmission had started 6 hours ago, just a whisper in the cosmic static. Jake first thought it was equipment malfunction, but the pattern was too regular, too deliberate. Every 47 minutes, the same weak signal repeated itself, growing fainter each time like a dying heartbeat. "Lisa, you getting anything on this?" Jake called over to Communications Officer Lisa Thompson, who sat hunched over her decryption equipment 3 stations away. Lisa pushed her blonde hair back from her face, frustrated. "It's definitely artificial, Jake. Someone made this signal. But the language structure is completely alien. Nothing like anything in our databases." Captain Robert Hayes stopped his endless pacing and moved closer to their stations. The tall, gray-haired commander had been unusually tense all evening. Something about this signal bothered him in ways he couldn't explain. "How far out is it coming from?" Hayes asked, his voice tight. Jake checked his instruments again. "That's the crazy part, sir. The signal is coming from the Kepler 442 system. That's over 1,200 light-years away. With our current ships, it would take us about 15,000 years to get there." 15,000 years, Hayes repeated quietly, staring at the star charts on the main screen. Lisa suddenly sat up straight. "Wait, I'm getting something. The computer is starting to break down the language patterns." She typed rapidly, her fingers flying over the keyboard. The 3 of them watched as alien symbols slowly transformed into English letters on her screen. The first word appeared, they. Then, are. Then, coming. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as more words appeared. Lisa read aloud as they formed, "They are coming. We are the last. Do not let our sacrifice be forgotten." The message was simple, but the desperation behind it was clear. Someone, somewhere, was facing something terrible. Someone was about to die, and they wanted the universe to remember them. "My God," Captain Hayes whispered. "How long has this message been traveling to reach us?" "Over 1,000 years, sir," Jake answered. "Whatever happened there, it happened when Earth was still in the Middle Ages." Lisa continued working on the signal. "There's more here, Captain. The message isn't just words. There are data patterns embedded in it. Star charts, technical specifications, something that looks like blueprints." "Blueprints for what?" Hayes demanded. "I don't know yet, sir. But whoever sent this, they wanted us to have this information. They knew we'd eventually be able to decode it." Jake stared at his console, watching the signal grow weaker with each repetition. "Captain, this message is dying. Maybe 10 more transmissions and it'll be too weak to detect." Hayes nodded grimly. "Record everything. Every detail, every data packet. This might be the last voice of an entire civilization." As they worked to capture the fading transmission, none of them noticed the subtle change in their station's computer systems. Deep in the quantum processors, ancient protocols were activating. Code that had been sleeping for centuries began to wake up. Emergency signals started broadcasting toward Earth on frequencies that hadn't been used in 300 years. Far below on Earth's surface, in bunkers buried beneath mountains and hidden in desert wastelands, seals that had remained unbroken since the early 21st century began to crack. Ancient machinery hummed to life. Cryogenic systems that had maintained their silent watch for generations received their activation codes. The Eternal Guard was waking up. But Jake, Lisa, and Captain Hayes knew nothing about what their discovery had triggered. They only knew that somewhere across the vast darkness of space, someone had died trying to warn the universe about something terrible. Someone had used their last moments to send a message of hope disguised as a cry for help. The signal grew weaker with each passing minute, but its purpose was already fulfilled. Humanity had heard the call, and deep in Earth's most secret places, its greatest warriors were beginning to stir from their long sleep. The universe was about to learn why humans never abandoned their friends. The emergency alarm screamed through the Colorado Mountain facility at exactly 3:47 a.m. Colonel Patricia Davis jolted awake in her quarters, immediately knowing this was the call she had trained for her entire career but never expected to receive. The Eternal Guard protocols were activating for the first time in 3 centuries. She threw on her uniform and raced through corridors carved deep into solid rock. The facility had been built during the early days of space exploration, when humanity first realized they might not be alone in the universe. What they discovered out there had terrified the world's leaders enough to create the most secret project in human history. The massive vault doors stood open for the first time since Patricia's great-great-grandfather had sealed them. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing a sight that took her breath away. Hundreds of cryogenic pods stretched into the shadows like sleeping giants, each one containing a warrior from human history. "Dr. Watson, are you seeing this?" Patricia spoke into her radio as she walked between the pods. "I'm here, Colonel," came the reply from Dr. Emily Watson, the facility's chief medical officer. "All pods are showing green lights. The awakening sequence has begun automatically." Patricia stopped at the first pod. Inside, she could see a massive man with braided beard and intricate tattoos covering his arms. The nameplate read Eric Thorson, Viking warrior, 9th century. Next to him lay a man in medieval chain mail, Sir William Bradford, English knight, 12th century. "How is this possible?" Patricia whispered. "How are they still alive after all these centuries?" Dr. Watson's voice crackled through the radio. "The selection process took decades. They didn't just pick any warriors. Each of these men and women volunteered, knowing they might sleep for centuries before being needed. They represent the absolute best fighters from every era of human warfare." Patricia moved deeper into the chamber. She found a pod containing a samurai in ornate armor, then a Roman soldier still clutching his gladius sword. Further down the row, she discovered more recent additions: a World War II sergeant with battle scars across his chest, a Vietnam veteran with a Purple Heart medal still pinned to his uniform. The first pod began to hiss as its seals broke. Steam poured out as the cryogenic system slowly warmed the occupant. Through the clearing mist, Patricia saw the Viking warrior's eyes flutter open. Eric Thorson had been asleep for over 1,000 years, but when he sat up, his gaze was sharp and alert. "Where am I?" he asked in perfect English, though Patricia knew he had originally spoken only Old Norse. "You're in Colorado, United States of America. The year is 2387, she replied. "You've been selected for the Eternal Guard mission." Eric nodded as if this news was completely normal. "Then the threat has finally come. What do we face?" Before Patricia could answer, more pods began opening. The medieval knight Sir William stretched his arms, working out centuries of stiffness. "Brothers," he called to the other awakening warriors, "our time has arrived." The World War II veteran, Sergeant Tom Anderson, climbed out of his pod with surprising agility for someone who had been frozen for over 400 years. "I remember volunteering for this," he said, looking around at his fellow warriors. "They told us we might be humanity's last hope someday." Dr. Watson appeared from behind the monitoring station, tablet in hand. "All vital signs are perfect. The enhancement process worked exactly as designed. They're not just preserved, they're improved. Faster reflexes, enhanced strength, perfect health." A Navy SEAL named Commander Mike Roberts emerged from his pod, immediately assessing the situation with trained eyes. "Ma'am, what's our mission parameters? What are we facing?" Patricia looked at these legendary fighters, each one representing the absolute peak of human warrior spirit from their respective eras. "An alien distress signal reached us from 1,200 light-years away. Something destroyed 17 different alien civilizations. We believe humanity is next on their list." Eric grinned, showing no fear at the impossible odds. "Finally, a battle worthy of Valhalla." Sir William checked his equipment, finding modern weapons had been placed beside his pod. In my time, we called it chivalry, protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Sergeant Anderson loaded a futuristic rifle with practiced ease. Sounds like every war I ever fought. Just with higher stakes this time. As more pods opened throughout the chamber, Patricia realized she was witnessing something incredible. These weren't just soldiers from different time periods. They were the living embodiment of human determination, the spirit that had driven mankind to never surrender, never abandon their friends, no matter how impossible the fight seemed. The Eternal Guard was awake, and the universe was about to learn what happened when humanity's greatest warriors united for a common cause. The engineering bay at Luna Station buzzed with activity like never before. Chief Engineer David Park hadn't slept in 3 days, surviving on coffee and pure determination as he stared at the alien blueprints displayed on dozens of holographic screens around him. The mathematical formulas were unlike anything humans had ever seen, yet somehow they made perfect sense. "This is incredible," David muttered to his assistant, Jenny Walsh, who was running calculations on her tablet. "Look at this design. They're not just bending space-time, they're folding it like origami. A journey that should take 15,000 years can be completed in weeks." Jenny shook her head in amazement. "But Chief, some of these materials don't exist in our periodic table. How are we supposed to build something with elements we've never discovered?" David smiled tiredly. "That's the beautiful part. The aliens didn't just send us blueprints. They sent us the complete manufacturing process. Look here," he pointed to a section of the display. "These crystalline matrices can be grown using modified fusion reactors. We already have everything we need." Meanwhile, in the weapon testing facility 3 levels down, the awakened warriors were having the time of their lives. Eric Thorson, the Viking berserker, hefted a massive energy axe that hummed with barely contained power. The weapon looked like his ancient battle axe, but instead of steel, it projected a blade of pure plasma. "Ha!" Eric laughed, swinging the weapon through a practice target. The energy blade sliced through reinforced titanium like butter. "In my day, we had to work much harder to split a man in two. This will do very nicely indeed." Commander Mike Roberts, the Navy SEAL, was examining a rifle that fired concentrated plasma bolts. The weapon felt familiar in his hands despite being technology beyond anything from his era. "The targeting system is integrated with my neural implants," he explained to Sergeant Tom Anderson. "I just think about where I want to hit, and the gun automatically adjusts." Tom hefted his own weapon, a massive cannon designed for taking down armored vehicles. "Back in World War II, we called this kind of firepower artillery. Now it's a personal weapon. Times sure have changed." Sir William Bradford, the medieval knight, stood encased in powered armor that made him look like a walking tank. The suit responded to his thoughts, amplifying his strength tenfold while protecting him from weapons that could level buildings. "My old chainmail protected me from swords and arrows," he said, flexing his armored fingers. "This armor could protect me from the fires of hell itself." Dr. Watson monitored all the warriors as they adapted to their new equipment. "The neural interfaces we installed during their awakening are working perfectly," she reported to Colonel Davis. "They're learning to use 24th century technology as if they were born with it." In the shipyard, the vessel taking shape was unlike anything humanity had ever built. The Ragnarok's dawn stretched nearly a mile long, its hull crafted from alien alloys that shimmered with inner light. Captain Amy Foster stood on the bridge, watching through the viewports as the final components were installed. "Status report," she called to her crew. Lieutenant Jake Miller, transferred from Cerberus Watch, checked his instruments. "FTL drive is online and stable, Captain. The alien technology is integrating perfectly with our systems." Lisa Thompson, now serving as the ship's communications officer, nodded from her station. "All departments reporting ready, ma'am. The warriors have completed their equipment training." Captain Foster activated the ship's internal communication system. Her voice echoed through every corridor and chamber of the massive vessel. Attention all hands. This is Captain Foster. In 1 hour, we will attempt humanity's first faster-than-light journey. We go not as conquerors or explorers, but as defenders. Somewhere in the darkness, someone called for help. That call traveled over 1,000 years to reach us. She paused, looking around the bridge at her crew, some from the 24th century, others awakened from humanity's distant past, all united by a common purpose. I want every person on this ship to understand what we're doing here. We're not just traveling to another star system. We're proving something that every human throughout history has believed in, that when someone needs help, you answer the call. It doesn't matter how far away they are. It doesn't matter how dangerous it might be. When someone is in trouble, humans don't walk away. In the warrior quarters, Eric sharpened his energy axe while Sir William checked his armor one final time. Sergeant Anderson cleaned his rifle, following the same routine he'd practiced for decades. Commander Robert studied tactical displays, planning for battles against enemies they couldn't yet imagine. The ship's engines began to hum with power as the FTL drive came online. Space itself began to bend around the Ragnarok's dawn as humanity prepared to take its first step into a larger, more dangerous universe. They were no longer alone, and they were about to prove that some things never changed. Humans protected their friends, no matter the cost. The Ragnarok's dawn dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a shudder that ran through every deck. Captain Amy Foster gripped her command chair as the ship's artificial gravity stabilized, but nothing could have prepared her for what appeared on the main view screen. "Dear God," whispered Lieutenant Jake Miller from his navigation station. What happened here? Spread out before them was a graveyard that stretched across the entire star system. Massive chunks of metal and debris floated in the void, some pieces larger than Earth's moon. The twisted remains of starships from dozens of different alien civilizations drifted silently through space, their hulls cracked and broken like discarded toys. Lisa Thompson worked frantically at her communications station. "I'm detecting 17 different ship designs, Captain. Each one represents a completely different technology base. These weren't just random travelers, these were entire fleets." Dr. Watson studied the readings from her science station. "The debris field is massive. Based on the dispersal pattern, whatever did this happened over several years. They didn't all die at once, they died one civilization at a time." Captain Foster stood slowly, studying the devastation. In her 20 years of space service, she had seen battlefields before, but nothing like this. This wasn't just the aftermath of a war, it was the systematic extinction of multiple species. "Life signs," reported Jake suddenly. "I'm detecting one faint life sign on the third moon of the gas giant. That has to be our signal source," Foster decided. "Take us in, but stay alert. Whatever did this might still be here." The Ragnarok's dawn carefully navigated through the debris field toward the small moon. As they approached, they could see a single structure on the surface, a fortified position built from the wreckage of alien ships. A massive energy cannon pointed toward deep space, still active after years of solitary vigil. "Transport team, you're with me," Foster announced. "Eric, Sir William, Tom, Mike, gear up. We're going down to meet our mystery caller." The transport shuttle landed near the fortified position, kicking up dust that hadn't been disturbed in years. The human team approached cautiously, their weapons ready but not threatening. As they got closer, they could see the figure manning the energy cannon. He was tall and slender, with blue-tinted skin and large eyes that seemed to hold the weight of unimaginable loss. His uniform was torn and patched, clearly maintained through years of solitary survival. When he turned to face the approaching humans, his expression shifted from suspicion to amazement. "You came," he said in heavily accented English, his voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought, after all this time, you actually came." Captain Foster stepped forward, removing her helmet. "I'm Captain Amy Foster of the human vessel Ragnarok's Dawn. We received your transmission." The alien warrior sagged with relief, and for a moment it looked like he might collapse. I am Commander Tal of the Altarian Defense Force. I was the last guardian of my world. His voice broke slightly. I have been alone here for 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Sir William, the medieval knight, moved closer. Even through the translator, he could hear the pain in the alien's voice. You've been fighting alone all this time? Tal nodded toward his cannon. This weapon has kept them at bay, but barely. They probe the defenses every few months, testing for weakness. I knew it was only a matter of time before they overwhelmed me. Who are they? Eric demanded, his hand instinctively moving to his energy axe. The Devourers, Tal replied, his voice filled with horror. They consume entire worlds, absorbing not just the life but the very reality of a place. They twist space and time itself, making physics bend to their will. Every civilization you see in that debris field thought they could fight them conventionally. They were all wrong. Commander Robert studied the tactical displays in Tal's bunker. How many ships are we talking about? Hundreds, Tal answered. Maybe thousands. They travel in a swarm that blocks out the stars. But numbers aren't the real problem. They can phase in and out of normal space, appear behind your defenses, make your weapons fire on your own ships. Reality itself becomes their weapon. Captain Foster felt her stomach tighten, but her voice remained steady. When will they be back? Tal checked his instruments with practiced efficiency. Based on their pattern, they should return within hours. Maybe less. He looked at the small group of humans with desperate eyes. You must leave immediately. Take my data logs, warn your people. Don't let humanity make the same mistake we all did. Foster looked around at her team. Eric was grinning with anticipation, Sir William was checking his armor systems, and Sergeant Tom Anderson was methodically loading his rifle. Commander Roberts was already studying defensive positions. We didn't travel 1,200 light-years just to run away, Foster said firmly. We came because someone needed help. You don't understand, Tal protested. They've destroyed civilizations that were millions of years old. Species with technology beyond your imagination. What can one small ship possibly do? Sergeant Anderson looked up from his weapon. Ma'am, this reminds me of Normandy. Everyone said we couldn't win that one either. He smiled grimly. But we had something they didn't expect. What's that? Tal asked. Stubbornness, Anderson replied. Pure human stubbornness. Captain Foster activated her communicator. Ragnarok's dawn, this is Foster. Form battle lines and prepare for engagement. We're about to show the universe what happens when you mess with the wrong species. The Devourers arrived like a plague of darkness sweeping across the stars. Their ships didn't follow the normal rules of physics, they phased in and out of reality, appearing as twisted shadows that hurt to look at directly. Commander Tal watched his instruments in horror as hundreds of enemy vessels materialized around the small moon. They're here, he whispered into his communicator. May whatever gods you humans worship have mercy on your souls. Captain Amy Foster stood on the bridge of the Ragnarok's dawn, watching the enemy fleet take position. The Devourer's ships moved like living things, pulsing and shifting as if they were made of liquid metal and nightmares. All stations, battle stations, she announced calmly. This is what we came here for. Down in the warrior quarters, Eric Thorson was having the time of his life. The Viking berserker had painted his face with blue war paint and was leading a group of similarly decorated fighters toward the transport bays. Today we dine in Valhalla, brothers, he roared. But first, we send these monsters to whatever hell spawned them. The first wave of Devourers attacked by trying to warp reality around the human ship. Space twisted and bent, making the stars spin in impossible directions. Gravity shifted and changed, trying to tear the Ragnarok's dawn apart from within. But the human ship held together through sheer stubborn engineering and the will of its crew. They're trying to phase through our shields, reported Jake Miller from his station. The hull is holding, but barely. Then we go to them, Captain Foster decided. Launch all fighters and boarding pods. If they want to play games with reality, let's see how they handle good old-fashioned human violence. The battle that followed would be talked about across the galaxy for thousands of years. Eric led the first boarding assault, using his energy axe to literally cut holes between dimensions. When Devourer ships tried to phase out of normal space, Eric followed them, hacking through their twisted hulls with berserker fury that defied all logic. Sir William Bradford fought alongside power-armored Marines, his medieval training adapting perfectly to zero-gravity combat. When the Devourers sent reality-bending attacks that turned lasers into flowers and explosions into music, Sir William simply drew his sword and started cutting through enemies the old-fashioned way. Physics be damned, the knight growled as he sliced through a creature that existed in 7 dimensions at once. Steel cuts what steel cuts. Commander Mike Roberts coordinated strike teams across multiple Devourer vessels, using tactics that combined Navy SEAL precision with berserker courage. When the enemy tried to confuse his teams by making their weapons shoot backwards through time, Roberts simply ordered everyone to use knives and grenades. Back on the moon's surface, Commander Tal watched in amazement as human warriors did the impossible. Sergeant Tom Anderson had taken position behind makeshift cover, his rifle firing continuously at targets that shouldn't have been able to be hit. When Devourers tried to phase through his bullets, Anderson somehow managed to shoot them while they were between dimensions. How are they doing this? Tal asked Dr. Watson, who had established a medical station in his bunker. Human stubbornness, she replied while treating wounded fighters. The Devourers work by making their enemies doubt reality. But humans have spent their entire history fighting things that seemed impossible to defeat. We're too stupid to know when we're beaten. The turning point came when Eric discovered that his energy axe could cut through the barriers between realities. Every time a Devourer ship tried to escape into another dimension, the Viking followed it with a bloodthirsty grin. Soon, other human warriors were copying his technique, using pure determination to follow enemies into realms of twisted spacetime. The Devourers had never faced an enemy like this. Every other species they'd encountered had tried to fight them with advanced technology and careful strategy. Humans just charged straight at them with weapons blazing and ancient battle cries on their lips. The battle raged for 18 hours. When it finally ended, the space around the small moon was filled with the wreckage of Devourer ships. The reality-warping entities that had destroyed 17 civilizations lay broken and defeated, their twisted hulls drifting silently among the debris. The cost had been terrible. Nearly half the human warriors didn't survive the battle. Eric Thorson died with his axe buried in the heart of the Devourer command ship. Sir William fell protecting a group of wounded Marines. Dozens of others sacrificed themselves to ensure victory. 3 days later, rescue fleets from across the galaxy began arriving. Word had spread somehow that the Devourers had been defeated. Alien ships appeared from dozens of different star systems, all coming to see if the impossible reports were true. They found Captain Foster and the surviving humans sitting around a small campfire on the moon's surface, sharing a meal with Commander Tal. The fire was built from pieces of Devourer wreckage, and the smoke carried the ashes of defeated monsters up toward the stars. "Captain," one of the alien commanders asked through his translator, "how did you do what 17 civilizations could not?" Foster looked up from her simple meal. "We didn't run," she said quietly. "When someone calls for help, humans don't run. That's just who we are." She raised her metal cup toward the stars. To Eric, to Sir William, to all the ones who didn't make it home. They proved something today that the galaxy needed to learn. Commander Tal raised his own cup. What did they prove? That there's no force in the universe stronger than humans protecting their friends. The message spread from species to species, carried by the rescue fleets back to their home worlds. Earth's children had traveled 1,200 light-years to answer a call for help. They had faced impossible odds and won through sheer determination and courage. From that day forward, no species in the galaxy stood alone. The humans had shown them something new, that sometimes the best technology is an old warrior with a sharp blade and the will to never give up. The legend of the last stand at Kepler 442 became the foundation of the Galactic Alliance. And at the center of every Alliance meeting hall, a simple plaque bore the words that Captain Foster had spoken over her fallen warriors. We didn't come this far to run.